Hello everybody, welcome back. If you're new to the group, each week Molly and I present a word, and that word is designed to be a guide for contemplation, meditation, journaling, and discussion. This week's word is devotion. And I have been thinking a lot about devotion. I devote a lot of time to the IMR system and my weekly contribution here to this group. It doesn't always happen every week. I find myself to get busy, or it's not the right time, or I don't want to feel rushed. Sometimes I do 2 words in 1 week. Sometimes I get them once a week on the same day. But my devotion looks different. Sometimes it's very consistent. Sometimes it's just getting things done in a fashion that works for me and being kind to myself when I don't get things done in the structure that I would like to. And things that I'm devoted to that are outside of myself. When I think about those things, though, family, friends, education, work, accomplishments, these kind of things that are outside of me, my presence in my community, that kind of thing. I'm devoted to a lot of things outside of myself. There's also this idea of devotion inside, so an internal devotion to spiritual practice, mental health, really physical health, really working on myself and being devoted to myself in an equal proportion. So I think that that's one of those things where you got to find a balance. If you're spending way too much time on any one of those things, other things are going to get neglected. And I think starting with a devotion to yourself, starting with a devotion of internal processing and practicing is a very good place to start. When you can be devoted to your own self, devoted to your own practices, devoted to your own understanding of yourself, understanding of your spiritual connection, having these connections and building the strength behind these connections can be a very good place to start with learning and practicing with devotion. And when you come to the outside world, being devoted to friends, being devoted to family, being devoted to your career, being devoted to education, being devoted to your communities, things that are bigger and outside of you, I think those are really interesting because they kind of ebb and flow. I find that sometimes I'm very devoted to certain people, and then other relationships might fall by the wayside, and they come in and out of flow of like who I'm paying attention to, who I'm talking to, who I'm supporting, and that devotion can feel really good when it's working, and when there's some neglect, it can feel really negative and difficult because there could be hurt feelings there can be lack of connection, like loss of connection there. And so devotion is one of those very fluid things that the more time you're spending on something, the more devoted you are to something, the stronger those connections are, the stronger those feelings are. And then again, on the opposite side of that, the less time you're spending on something, the more difficult it is to stay connected, the more difficult it is to accomplish those things. And those relationships or those goals can ebb and flow in that way, where devotion really is about putting the time in, putting your energy into something. And that process and that practice is happening for all of us all of the time. And when we look at it in this perspective, what are you spending your time doing? What are you devoting your time to? And are those things filling your life with positive feelings? Are they filling your life with things that are moving you forward and helping you grow? Are you in a place where maybe you are stagnant? You feel like the things that you're devoting your time to aren't doing much other than sucking up time? Are you doing things, are you devoted to things that are maybe damaging you, that are harder, that are difficult, that are full of struggle? And all of those places are a good place to be. We learn something new in each one of those places. We learn something when we're devoted to things that are not healthy for us. We learn something when we're devoted to things that are just kind of eating up time. We learn something when we're devoted to things that are very good for us. And to be kind to ourselves and to be kind to others when we're in each one of those places is always our are key here. It's always what we're talking about, is that none of these processes or practices are good or bad. Some things can be healthy or unhealthy, but you have an opportunity to learn and grow no matter where you are in that process. And we're all going to go through those processes. We're all going to have times when we're very devoted and we feel very good about where we are. We're all going to have times where we feel kind of neutral and out of sync or just kind of complacent. We're all going to have times where we feel like we're in a really tough situation and we're having a really hard time. And it's important to remember that you're learning something in all of those places. And the key is to remember that this will pass. It's easy to know that, well, I don't even know if I want to say easy. We use that term, that this will pass, when we're going through something difficult. So I talk to people a lot about remembering that no matter what situation you're in, this will pass. It will evolve and turn into something else. That's the nature of life. That's the nature of time. That's the nature of our relationship with this world, is that we're growing and aging and changing all the time. And so is everyone and everything around us. It's also important to remember that when you're having good times, when you're in a place that's positive, or things are looking up for you, or things are going well, or they're flowing well, that too will pass. And to hold tightly on any of those things can really be difficult, because then that time in your life that you're held to becomes more important than the process of life. And if you're holding too tight to these positive things or these successes, that can be as difficult as when you're holding too tight to these things that are difficult or failures. And same thing with this kind of complacent place in the middle. If you're holding too tight to this sort of time-absorbing place of being kind of neutral about things and not progressing or not changing or not working on stuff. Neutrality is good when we're talking about extremes in behavior, but to stay too kind of neutral in a space can just make it so that the days feel like they're passing and nothing's really happening. So I think devotion for me is a really good word to contemplate. What are you devoting your time to? How are you spending those hours in your day, and what does that look like for you right now? Are you in a place where you want to devote your time differently? Are you feeling really good about where your time is being devoted? How are you experiencing this word of devotion? So I look forward to hearing your thoughts and your comments, and I hope you enjoyed my video this week. Thank you for showing up today.